to
Yeah.
reflect, and my wife and I grew up under very similar circumstances, and we were just talking, and I remember like my entire youth, from junior high going through high school and all that shit that we go through, I never talked to a high school counselor. There was never once where a teacher was like, "Well, what are you doing after high school?" There was nobody. There was no safety net whatsoever. I joined,
Wow.
and so whenever I graduated high school, my father sat me down and he was like, whenever you graduate, you've got to move out because we can't afford for you to live here. And it wasn't because he didn't love me. It was like, that's the
Yeah.
facts. Move out, graduate high school, fly, like go live your life. And it
Yeah.
was like, okay, and it's like, okay, so I get it. And so immediately after high school, I joined the Marine Corps, went right in the Marine Corps because I had no other options. But at the same time, like I had turned this thing into like, well, this is going to be a spiritual journey where I become a shamanistic special forces troop that learns about myself and about, the world around me. And so I kind of
So by
I
that,
created that reality. It's not like I'm a
yeah.
pawn in the game of the Marine Corps
Yeah.
just mastering toxic masculinity. That's not, paint it however you want, but that's not what was in my mind. It's like, I'm going to use this environment to become, the alchemist of special operations. That's what I'm going to do. And I got in there and it was like boot camp was a joke. Infantry training. I think I was in the hospital multiple times. I had compound fractures of, just, fractures. I got pneumonia. It wasn't an easy way, but then I showed up and I'm like, okay, I'm here at the infantry unit. I'm making my reality. You want us to go do whatever? I'm going to do whatever. You want me to buff the hallway till 3 a.m. But after I'm done, I'm going to do calisthenics till I pass out. I started reading books on early or ancient or primitive cultures, like native cultures, and what they do as rites of passage, not only in a vision
Mm.
quest sense, but also in a martial sense. And what I mean by that is, how would they train? How would they pick and train their warriors? One of the things, like native Plains Indians in North America, they would do things where they would fill their mouth with water in the morning. The sun comes up, you fill your mouth with water. I'm going to run you all day long. And at the end of that day, I'm going to have you come back and have you spit the water out. And if you're one of the ones that can spit that water out, now I'll train you as a warrior. You can be part of the warrior class because now what you're saying to me is you have discipline. You have discipline of mind and body. Sure, you're running all day. It would be easier to swallow the water, breathe through your mouth. You drank the water, you're thirsty, all that shit, but I told you not to. And the one thing that you can't teach in people is discipline. And so it's just I would find these little kind of breadcrumbs along the way, and
Yeah.
so when I say I would go do calisthenics till I passed out, I would fill my mouth with water, and I would do every calisthenic known to man with my mouth filled with water. Or when I was in the Marine Corps and we'd be going on grueling ruck marches with heavy loads, I would fill my mouth with water the whole day. So it's like I'm practicing what I'm preaching. But
Yeah.
again, I wrote down a mission statement when I joined the military, like, what am I doing? And I wrote this down, just like I wrote down that overcome whenever I was hurt as a kid. I wrote down, what do I want to gain from this experience? Every day, I want to grow mentally,
Wow.
physically, and spiritually. How do I do that? Okay, we're going to do a ruck march. Big fucking deal. I can carry, 100 pounds all fucking day if you want me to. That's no big deal. But that intention of why am I doing this? I'm doing this to grow mentally, physically, and spiritually. Period. So I'm using that every day. And so anytime that I have any free time, I'm like, well, how can I, kind of make this better? How can I make this more profound for me? If we stop for 10 minutes every hour on a ruck march. How about if I sit down and I meditate? How about if I sit there and do deep breathing exercises
Shit,
when
man.
you give me
Wow.
10 minutes in between a ruck march? How about whenever I have to stand to on a force reconnaissance patrol, on alert patrol? How about I whenever I have to wake up as the sun rises and the sun sets? It's called EENT, ending of evening nautical twilight or beginning of evening nautical twilight. These are very important things in combat. Everybody's awake whenever the sun's coming up because that's when it's best to attack. That's whenever, people try to catch you with your pants down. So you wake up and you turn on all your senses. There's a thing in recon that we would do. It's called a SILS halt or a security halt. Stop, look, listen, smell. Stop, look, listen, smell. What is that? Those are mindfulness exercises. So I'm sitting there, and how do I tune into mindfulness exercises? I sit and I calm my breathing. I'm going to sit and calm my breathing. Now I'm going to listen. I'm going to put all of my attention on just listening to the environment around me. Do that for 5 minutes. Then switch and just smell. Smell for 5 minutes. Smell everything that I can smell. Switch off all of that and just look. Look at everything around me for 5 minutes. Notice the shapes, the textures, the movement. So go through that. So what are you doing? It's just mindfulness training. It's almost like the same thing of like Shaolin monks. Like they became martial experts, but at the same time, it's why they became so good at what they did is because they're using that as a path for spirituality as well. And so I was doing that same thing within special operations. And just being very mindful of it.
Yeah.